Welcome to the CDP, the Commercial Directors Podcast, where we discuss all things commercial directing, treatments, pitching, problem solving on set, and commercial breakdowns. Now you host Evan Swinehart.
3, 2, 1, talk to me.
All right, everybody. Welcome to the CDP, the Commercial Director Podcast. This is episode 10, and we made it 10 episodes, double digits. I just saw a stat that if you make it past 7, you will succeed. Most podcasts don't make it past 7, so here we go. We have Jon Schwartz for lucky number 10. Jon, how are you doing today, bud?
I'm doing good, Evan. I'm glad you guys made it past the hump and excited for more. So thanks for having me on. I feel honored to be number 10.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I actually shaved in the mustache today just for you as well.
Right.
Yeah, my wife absolutely hates it. I look like a sad catfish, but I don't know.
The mustache thing is a decision. You know,
it is.
I've not had the confidence to do that yet, but maybe at some point I'll do it. And my girlfriend will also be. She won't want to look at me. You know, hey. I get it too.
Yeah, she says I'm an asshole with a mustache. I just think it's because I look like I'm frowning all the time, but I'm like, I feel awesome with it, so I'm no asshole here.
You got to keep it then. If you feel good, that's the whole idea. I think one time my college roommate and I feel like I did do solo mustache once, and my college roommate and I were like Mario and Luigi for Halloween, and my girlfriend was like, "No, you guys are so creepy. Don't ever do this again."
See, you can pull it off. You would look good with the solo.
I don't know. I'm scared of it. I don't. And if that's one of those things, if you're gonna do it, you gotta just own it. And I'm not there yet. You know. For sure.
Well, maybe in the future, you'll go solo. But anyway, sure. Let's get to what the people want to hear, which is your story, your process, and then we'll break down a spot. So, Jon, kind of just tell us a little bit of your, path to directing and how you kind of got into this career.
Sure. There's two things that were sort of happening at the same time. One of them is kind of cool. The other one is really lame. I'll give you both. The main one is that I grew up skateboarding, and all my friends were very, very good, like so good that several of them are pro now, and you can like buy their shoes on, which is ridiculous.
Can you name drop?
I'll name drop one of them. His name is Julian Lewis. He's got a shoe out with Etnies, which is crazy. Amazing skateboarder. If you watch him, go on YouTube, watch a couple of his videos, and then picture me at like 14 trying to keep up with him. It's not good. And I realized very quickly, okay, these guys are way too good for me. The best thing to do is to get out of the way and just film them being good. So that was my start. But I was also, you know what tech decks are and like fingerboarding?
Yeah, absolutely.
Was very into that, which is way lamer. And I would like steal my mom's camcorder and film myself fingerboarding. And there's still YouTube videos of me from when I'm like very, very young in my bedroom with like my bunk bed in the background, doing tutorials and stuff. So that's that's like my first foray into filmmaking.
That's awesome. That's cool. So you had like the little skate parks and stuff too with the tech deck?
Oh yeah, I was intense about it, and I was like very entrepreneurial as a kid, and so I would like build ramps and I would sell them, and I was like doing the whole thing. So I had everything, and it was obviously very cool, and I made a lot of friends doing that. So yeah, I had everything.
That's awesome. Well, yeah, I mean, it sounds like you're ahead of the game too with like kind of YouTube and tutorials. And if you go to Jon's site, he definitely shares his wisdom. He does a lot of case studies and breakdowns on his website, which is great that he's sharing that knowledge. But Jon, kind of talk about like once you kind of, transition from like skateboarding and tech deck videos to more commercial work, like what kind of got you in the door in the commercial space?
Yeah, so I was doing a lot of music videos. I went to film school in Chicago. I got kind of burnt out on the grind of music videos. and I didn't want to do commercials, but I had sort of figured out that all my favorite directors were not really making their living doing music videos. They were doing commercials. So I was like, I think I need to do it. And I like begrudgingly, I wrote like 4 spec spots, and I shot them over a weekend in Chicago. And the second I like cut them together, I was like, whoa, this is really cool. And I think I'm better at this than I am music videos. So I just like went full force into the commercial world. And the first real thing I ever did was for a guy named Zach Moore, who is now a producer at High Dive. But at the time, he had a very small production company called Naked Gallery in Chicago. They were doing great work, and I sent him my stuff, and he was like, hey, this is solid, and we have this roster of directors, but none of them want to do commercials, and we have this stuff coming up for Mike's Hard Lemonade, or it was Mike's Harder Lemonade. He was like, do you want to do them? And I was like, fuck yeah, I do. So all my stuff was like very comedy and like kind of off the wall at the time, so it was a good match for their brand. Yeah, those were the first, they were like social spots. Those were the first things I ever did. So I have to credit Mr. Zach Moore for like kind of kickstarting my career, because that totally hooked me. And I was like, oh, I can actually make money doing this. It was very, very lucky, and super appreciative of Zach for helping me out there.
That's awesome. So then did you get on Zach's roster, or did you get repped by somebody else?
I was on Zach's roster for a little bit, and then me being green and not knowing how anything worked, I think I did 2 commercials for them, and I was like, oh, it's time to move to LA after I had literally done 2 social spots. So I was like, I very quickly was like, I need to climb the ladder. So moved to LA, and I was signed to another like very small production company doing social stuff. But I was not really making money directing, you know. I was doing everything. I was office PAing. I was driving for Uber. I was working at sushi restaurants, because that was sort of what I had done in Chicago. And I just sort of grinded those out until I had enough of a portfolio to try to land something real. And I was basically spending every dollar I had on specs too, to just try to keep boosting my reel until I could get like a legitimately budgeted job, you know. And yeah, it took a very long time, but that's kind of, I just pounded on the door of commercials until someone was like, all right, fine, man, just to shut you up, we'll let you do one. For sure. Yeah. And like, there's a ton of good stuff there. And when we did our pre-interview, I was kind of thinking this too, like there's so much that I love that you brought to the table. But we only have so much time. But sure, I feel like there's like, what I've always noticed about this podcast is funny, is like a couple themes is skateboarding. Yes. All the great directors seem to come from skateboarding, or skiing or snowboarding, some sort of action sport. And then spec work, right? Like spec work is very important, and I need to do an episode on spec work. But let's talk about, you're going through a transition right now. You said you were repped for a number of years at a production company, and now you're transitioning to freelance and kind of your own thing. Can you kind of talk about that transition a little bit? Yeah, it was very scary to do, because I loved the company I was with. I just felt like something was telling me that the tides were kind of turning. And so, I don't know, I just sort of went full force into the freelance thing, but I did have a lot of, you know, director friends who I was talking to who had been freelance and sort of independent for longer than I was, and got a little bit of game from them. I think the biggest transition has just been that now I'm hyper aware of the fact that there's not really anyone necessarily in my corner supporting me, and like, I have to be that person, right? I don't have like a PR rep who's doing stuff for me. I don't have an EP who's helping me, you know, figure out the path I'm going to take. And so I've sort of taken a lot of that into my own hands, and sort of, despite I don't really have a head for business, but I've sort of had to put that hat on momentarily and treat myself like I am running my own business now. As just like the sole director. So that's been the biggest transition for me in going independent.
When you're talking about like acting as your own business, like, I don't know, can you just maybe give some examples or steps of like what so far you have found to be successful and kind of running your own thing?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me, honestly, has been a lot of cold emails. I send a lot of cold emails. Like anyone I see who's working on something cool or just seems like an interesting person, I will email them. I'll leave like a genuine compliment about their work and see if they want to get on a Zoom. So cold emails have been huge. The other thing for me has just been trying to be top of mind with the people I already know. Again, so anytime I have new work or they've done something that I think is interesting, I'm kind of trying to be cyclical about my reach outs because I know that all of this stuff is like, it's cumulative, right? You're not going to get a job from one reach out, nor should that really be your goal. And it's not my goal, but my goal is to just, be in people's minds, because people are, especially in this world, people are super busy. And as much as we think about ourselves, nobody else on the outside is thinking about you every day in your work. So you kind of have to remind people that you exist and that you do good work. So that's kind of what I've been doing. And I've been going to a lot of just like filmmaking and commercial adjacent events and trying to hang out and have good conversations with people. So that's sort of been my end of the game as a business. It's not groundbreaking stuff, but it's there's a reason people send cold emails and go to these things, because eventually they work,
For sure. And then as far as your work goes that you're getting, is it through agencies or is it direct to brand?
Yeah, it's sort of a mix, and that's kind of what I was going for when I left the game of being repped, is I wanted a better mix of like, okay, I still have some jobs that are coming from EPs that I know in production companies. There are like one or two kind of smaller agencies or agencies that are internal to brand that I'm getting a little bit of work from. And then there's also a very small amount of kind of direct to brand stuff, but it's still typically through an agency. So again, I was just very aware of the fact that having kind of one pipeline for work wasn't necessarily a great long-term play. And so I've made a concerted effort to have multiple pipelines. So there's a couple streams that my work is coming from right now.
I want to go back to the cold emails.
Yeah.
Because I know that can be tricky. And like, let's just say, okay, you send an email, you kind of like compliment the work, try to set up a Zoom. Like say they don't respond, like, do you have like a rule for like how many times you'll kind of like poke them?
Sort of. It's not a hard and fast rule, and I typically only like to follow up with people when I have new information to share. That could be like, I did a director's cut of this thing, I have a new spot coming out. It could potentially even be like, hey, I'm on this podcast if you want to check it out. But I feel like after, if someone hasn't responded to you after like 3 emails, they're probably just not interested, which is a difficult pill to swallow. But I think the more you do it, the more you realize like nobody is personally trying to offend you.
Right.
People just get a lot of emails and they're busy and they have a lot of shit to do. And so, hard and fast rule, but I always try to have something new to share so that I'm not just poking them for the sake of like, hey, I want you to answer me,
And I think too, like, as someone who, kind of owned a production company in the past, like I'd get a lot of emails from people and, wouldn't respond, or I tried to respond to everybody, but sometimes you just like, you can't. And I do think people took it personally. And a lot of times it's like, hey, I just don't have any work for you. You know what I mean? And like, I think your work is great, but like, we just don't have anything. And we also have to feed our directors first before we can start, looking outside for people. So definitely don't get discouraged and don't take it personal.
Yeah. And I'm one to talk, because my girlfriend is always like, John, you got to stop complaining about this stuff. Because I take things very personally, right? Because our work is like, if you like what you're doing, then your work is personal to you. So you're thinking like, oh, I sent this email and now this person probably hates me and they hate my work. And like, unless you're being like a massive pest and you're like an off-putting person, I think the chances of that are low. But yeah, I try to avoid being a pest, and I think having something new to share is at least a little bit more enticing. And it's like that saying of like work begets work, right? If people see that you're working, there's like something in the air that happens where people want to hire you. Like anytime I'm really busy, I feel like there's like this Batman signal that goes up that I'm not even aware of, and agencies and production companies start reaching out, and I'm like, okay, they know I'm busy. There's like this signal in the air. So something happens, and it's tough to conjure, but yeah, that's how it seems to go.
Really quick, last kind of thing about like when you're going independent, I'm just curious versus when you were at the production company, has your like treatment process, pitch process like changed at all? Because, when you're at a production company, there's a lot of support, right? I feel like you have like that team kind of behind you can help you. There's sometimes resources, whether it's designers or people to kind of like proofread, maybe give you other ideas. So how do you tackle that now?
Yeah, it's been tricky, but I think because a lot of my work is still through the traditional world, there are still resources in place to have a deck designer or a treatment writer. But on the jobs where there's not, I think it is just about like, okay, I know I don't have an EP or a copywriter who's looking this over. And so I'm honestly leaning on my network a lot of like other directors who I can send the deck in advance and say, hey, am I rambling way too much? Am I copy? Like, are these images working for you? And, sometimes now I'm having to build and write decks fully on my own. And there are times where if I feel really strongly about a job and I think I have a good chance, I'll just come out of pocket to pay for a designer because I know like, okay, I have a good shot at winning this one. And so I know I can increase my chances and look better if I can just take that little risk up front of, whatever a designer's day rate is. So a bit of a mix of like doing things on my own, but leaning on friends and other people who can look at the decks before they go out, and a little bit of out of pocket stuff too. So bit of a mix.
Nice. Well, let's before we break down your spot, let's talk about your previs. It seems like you do a lot of previs and a lot of planning based off your website and just some of the conversations we've had. So you shoot a lot of stuff on your iPhone and kind of make animatics. I like to call them crapomatics. And then you also learned Blender to kind of do some previs. So can you kind of just give us your process with previs and how you approach that?
Sure. Yeah, it obviously depends on the job. And I think a lot of it comes from just like the anxiety of needing or wanting to know the answers to how everything is going to cut together. And so a lot of my work is very, very precise. And so the crapomatics or the previs, whatever you want to call it, have really been instrumental in not only just like putting me at ease and being like a great communication tool for the crew and I, but also if you have them in a decent spot, they can be a really good tool for the agency or client to look at as well and show them this is exactly what I'm shooting. That way on the day, all you have to really do is execute, press record, and direct the talent, and it frees up a lot of brain space. So I typically will still do traditional boards because those are, I don't always share the previs with the agency, and so sometimes the boards become, just like an agency communication tool essentially. But usually pretty close to after a job is awarded, my DP and I will get together and we'll just go into Cadrage or Artemis or however it is that you pronounce Cadrage, I don't know. And we'll just start shooting stuff. Sometimes if the boards are done, we'll use those as like our starting point. But sometimes I'll just show up to his house and be like, hey, here's the spot. Let's like start messing around. And I'll literally, we'll shoot a bunch of stuff and I'll sit at his dining room table and cut it together in Premiere. And then we'll say, okay, this shot is working. This is not. This needs to move faster. This lens is not right. And it's just like trying to get as many answers before the shoot day as possible is kind of the thing. But I could chat about Blender too if you want.
Yeah, let's do it.
So, and I can't take all the credit because my DP, who I will shout out, his name is Patrick Uziel. he and I sort of go back and forth on the Blender thing. And oftentimes he'll start like a build in Blender, and then I'll take over and adjust things. But something that I wasn't really expecting when I started directing commercials to be doing is I got a lot of jobs that the budgets were very tight, but there was kind of complicated set builds involved. And the thing that was super obvious right away was like, oh, I need to know exactly how large these rooms are to actually read properly on set. But also, I don't know how big a 20-foot wall looks like on a 20 millimeter lens versus a 35. And so my DP and I would go into Blender and, build these rooms, because we were doing all these set builds strictly just to be able to look at them through a lens and say, okay, that wall probably should be 2 feet larger or 3 feet larger. Because on the scale of my jobs, we just don't have the time or money to kind of guess and then fix things. So it's really just been a tool for getting precise about how large everything needs to be,
Cool. So in Blender, you can go ahead and like set like how many feet each wall actually is and whatnot.
Yeah, and you can stick a lens on there and see what things look like. And there's a lot of little like tricks that I've sort of learned doing so many set builds to make a room look bigger than it actually is. Like one of my go-to tricks, especially on jobs that are tight budget, is if you're trying to avoid looking like you're just in a box, is to build like a faux hallway that just leads to nowhere, but you have the little like doorway, whatever it is, you stick a wall behind it. Suddenly your room has gone from this box to looking like an actual room. And that's just from doing it enough to know like, hey, we should put a fake hallway back there, and it's gonna sell as an actual room and not just this box that we built,
There's so much good stuff here. And a lot of that I want to talk about after we watch your spot with
Sure.
your set builds. But I'm trying to decide if we should watch the spot and then watch the previs, or do you think we should watch the previs and then watch the spot?
I feel like watching the previs first is just kind of funny.
Yeah.
Because it's like this iPhone previs where a cat is playing a dog and I'm the lead character, and it's like clearly just my DP's living room. So I feel like there's a little more contrast there.
Okay.
So I'm down to do the previs first.
Okay, cool. Well, let me share my screen then here.
You need a sofa, huh?
What's you? Uniquely you. Boldly you. Undeniably you. Whatever that you is, created at Joybird. Styles, colors, fabrics, and configurations, all at your fingertips. Shop now, in-store or online at joybird.com.
There it is. My amazing performance.
Yeah, great work. Great work.
Thanks.
Okay, cool. Well, so when you were making this, what were some like big findings? Was there any, like, what were you kind of running into?
I think the biggest thing I was thinking about is the script was there was just a lot of phone, and I was super worried about like, okay, this thing is kind of repeating the same actions over and over, and so I was like hyper aware of like, okay, I don't want to repeat a shot at all. And even though we're doing the same thing, I want it to be interesting every time, even though we keep going back to the phone. So I was just like, we were just sort of throwing everything at the wall in terms of like, how do we shoot this phone to make it look cool, and keep it dynamic. And one of the goals for the spot in general was to be like very kinetic. So basically every single shot in the spot is moving. And sort of as the story progresses, we're also like always getting closer to the main character and, directory nerdy shit like that. Those were kind of the main things that I was focused on, is kinetic movement, but also making sure you could still, it wasn't like insane and it was still comprehensible. And really just like making sure the shots were also telling the story and being interesting, because there's only so many ways to shoot a phone. So we were always trying to come up with something new,
For sure. And you did that really well. And I think that's a great point, because that is something I found clients always do. Like they struggle with, like, they always just want to show their app or their product. Specifically, if it's like, kind kind of like some sort of software. And so they get kind of confused between commercial and like how-to video or like a demo. So I'm just curious, like, how did you, talk to the client or the agency and kind of convince them to be like, hey, here's how we'll represent features of the app in kind of the real world and get it out of the phone?
Oh, that's a good question. I feel like the biggest challenge here was selling them on the moving camera, right? Because there was a lot of concern about how we're going to transition from one couch to the other. And I think there's probably a way to do the job as like a big VFX job, or there's a way to do the job as like you just shoot everything static. But I knew that I wasn't really interested in doing those. And so I think selling them on the motion control as like, hey, I'm not just like a director who wants to rent this cool toy, because I'm not really a gearhead at all, but I'm using this as like a storytelling tool and also a problem solving tool for how to connect these pieces, and so that we can transition from one couch to the next, because that was the whole idea of the spot, is to show how these couches can sort of transform your living room. So that was a big thing, but I was also big on having shots where, there's like action and reaction in the same frame. So you're seeing the phone get swiped and you're seeing the couch change without cutting. I think that's kind of where the magic was in this spot, is like combining those things and not trying to like cheat, so to speak, too much. I don't know if that's a great answer to your question, but those were the biggest sell points,
For sure. Well, and so let's back up a little bit. So this is for Joybird, which is a app that I assume you can kind of design your living room with and try different furniture and whatnot.
Yeah.
So first off, I guess, like, how did this job come to you? Was this through a production company, agency?
This was through a production company. Yeah. So it was like fairly traditional. And Joybird is just a furniture manufacturer, and their whole thing was like, I think that the thing at the time was design your world differently. So they wanted to have all these different like moods for each sofa, as you kind of could customize your world, so to speak.
And then like a lot of these shots, you have so many fun, awesome angles in this, and we'll get to the spot in a minute. And then also, like you said, how you seamlessly transition between couches. Was that all in the brief or the boards, or are these all things you kind of added as like punch-ups?
I sort of added them as punch-ups. They knew that their initial animatic was not the thing we were shooting, but the initial animatic was all basically lock-offs, So the agency is called Marketing Architects. They were awesome to work with and super open-minded about how we kind of enhance this thing. But a lot of it too was figuring out what is actually going to make the story work. And once we go to the actual spot, you'll see where we sort of added certain elements to kind of bring this idea of like, take this idea of like this woman walking into her room and realizing she needs a sofa, and like, how do we actually visually make that a catalyst for these couches to start appearing? So yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, let's get to the spot here.
Let's do it.
We need a sofa.
What's you? Uniquely you. Boldly you. Whatever that you is, create it at Joybird. Styles, colors, fabrics, and configurations, all at your fingertips. Shop now, in-store or online at joybird.com. Joybird, design your world differently.
All right. So much good stuff to talk about in here.
Thanks.
Okay. This is like one of those spots like I love, because it's like when you watch it, it feels very, I don't know, like simple, but I know it's not, you know what I mean? Like that's like it's done so well. So let's first talk about like with camera movement. Like you have so much good camera movement in here.
Thanks.
And so you said motion control. So what did you guys use to do this?
Yeah, we shot this on the Milo. Again, I'm not a huge gearhead guy, but I went to camera control in Santa Monica and was basically just like, what's going to be the best tool for this? We have a limited, like we don't have a ton of time on set. What's going to be the best unit that we can rent that's going to kind of allow us to get all of our shots without having to repo the whole unit every time? It's kind of strange. The Milo is this like giant hunk of metal, but basically what I learned from them telling me is like, actually it's better to have a bigger motion control unit that has better reach, because then we have to move it around less. Whereas like, I feel like instinctually I was like, oh, we want something small that we can maneuver. And they were like, no, you got to get something big that can just reach as many of the shots as possible without us having to move things. So long answer, but yes, that's the Milo.
That is like a really great tip. Cause yeah, I definitely could see like, okay, it's smaller, it's more nimble, but then you're having to move the track and whatnot and repo stuff. So like how big was your arm? Do you remember?
Oh, I don't remember what the reach is. If I send you the BTS photos, you can see it looks like a big hunk of metal. Like it doesn't look like a sleek motion control arm. Or if you just look up the Milo, I don't remember what the reach of the arm is, but it's pretty good, you know?
Well, I guess so then like how many setups, do you remember like how many like setups you had in this where you actually had to kind of like reposition
Sure.
the Milo?
I want to say we only had to reposition like 3 or 4 times the whole day. It was basically able to reach most of what we wanted to do from one spot. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, this is great.
Thanks.
What about like timing? Like, did you guys like have a day where you were able to kind of like dial in all the timing and the moves and whatnot, and then you just showed up on set and we're ready to go?
Yeah, I want to say that we had the motion control text on the pre-light where we started programming actual moves. But that's another thing where the previs is super useful, because I could just open up Premiere and say to the motion control tech, hey, this shot is 1 second and 12 frames. Those guys work just in frames. But that's actually super nice, because you can literally say to the dude on set, hey, can you make that 10 frames longer? Can you make it 10 frames shorter? And you can really play with the speed. So we already sort of knew exactly what the timing would be. And then, of course, on the day, it was like, let's do a faster one just to have it. Let's do a slower one just to have it. But then, honestly, a lot of it is just like syncing that with the talent's movements, too. That's probably the trickiest part, because obviously the talent is not a robot. They're a human. And so they have to you have to sort of get them used to the timing of the robot as well. And so oftentimes before we go, I will show them the speed of the move with them just standing off to the side, so they kind of know what to expect and are not like caught off guard by how fast it's moving.
Yeah, exactly. Because especially when you're talking about like shorter time frames, it usually has to move really fast.
Yeah.
Like this shot. Like that
It's
is like
very
insanely
close to her.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm always terrified of someone getting hurt on my set. So I'm always super, super transparent about like, here's what we're gonna do. Watch the move without you being there. Are you comfortable doing it? Okay, you are. Great. So she, her name is Jude Salazar. She was fantastic, and you can even see she knew when she had to lean back and when she could sit up. But this was on a probe, and yeah, we were like just like going right across her chest, like inches away. It was kind of nerve wracking, but she killed it, and she seemed like she just was not scared about it at all, which puts me at ease as the director.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then there's a few shots in here. Like, are you like obviously there's some VFX in here. So like, like where like this, like you're like, is there a cut here?
I don't know that I can't remember if there's a cut there as much as it is just like masking. But there may be a cut as we tilt back up. But because the movement is repeatable and it's the same every time,
right,
you can cut wherever you'd like. There's obviously some ramps going on, but it was a lot of masking and a lot of like comps. Like her hand there with the phone is one shot as kind of a plate. And then there's one with the dog, as another plate, and then there's one with each different couch. So it's a lot of repeats, you know? So even though there's only, I think there's like 12 setups in the whole spot, a lot of the shots required us to shoot them 3 or 4 times to kind of repo and put each new sofa in, you know?
Right. And I think that's what's so cool about motion control is like you can almost start to like, you gather all these plates and pieces and you can almost build the perfect scene. Yeah. Which is really cool. Are there any other findings that you found or tips that you think are useful when you're working with motion control to go to, like, you know, the next time you use it, or for people who might be interested in it? Because I do feel like people hear motion control, and I mean, some people are super stoked. I feel like more maybe producer ADs like might get worried about like time, but like I think what you talked about, it's actually can be like quite a time saving tool.
Yeah, I personally think that it's a time-saving tool if you have prepped enough for it. A quick story is like when I was office PAing, I did this huge commercial, and they shot motion control, and they sort of just thought it's this like magic thing that you can do anything with. And then we ended up shooting for 2 days, and we did like 16 to 18 hours a day and like tons of overtime, because they just were not kind of ready to shoot with it. And that scared the shit out of me. Even as an office PA, I was like, this is a tense set. So when I started using it, I knew that you have to do a lot of prep. So the more you can be precise about how many setups there are, how long each shot is, and how much it's moving is huge. And then I do a lot of meetings with the tech in my DP in advance, so that everyone is on the same page. And obviously having a good AD is crucial. And just knowing the run of show and making sure that everyone knows exactly where we're going from A to B to C, so that there is no question on the day about what's next and how long is this move. And, you know, like if you're the kind of person who is like an over preparer, I think motion control is a time saving thing, because once the move is dialed, you can do it all day and it's very easy to adjust. But if you kind of like to come up with stuff on the fly, it may not be the right tool. It's a scary thing though, and I think again, if you're an over preparer like I am, I personally feel like it's sometimes a no-brainer if you have the right job for it.
For sure. And were you on it all day, or were there some shots in here?
We were on it all day. I don't think there's a single shot in there that is not motion control. Because we had so many shots that had to be motion control that I think we would have spent more time getting it off the rig and going to something else, you know? So
for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So like even this like dolly zoom.
Yeah. The Zolly is Moco, which I wish we pushed it harder, but it was great for that, because you don't have to worry about the AC pulling the zoom at the same time. You know, it's all automated, so it's basically going to be perfect every time.
Yeah, I love that shot, man. It's so good.
Thanks.
Cool. And then let's go to your sets then.
Sure.
Okay, first let's just talk about the windows. Obviously this is all VFX'd in here. You weren't actually shooting in a high-rise apartment, but did you have to do anything? Like, did you do anything special with the windows, or is this just like green with tracking marks behind?
It was green, actually no tracking marks.
Okay.
I was kind of surprised to hear this VFX guy basically told us, like, you don't really need to use them in this case. And I guess he was right. The guy whose job it is to be right about those things knew. So it's all green, but what was funny is that we kind of didn't need it to be green screen. Initially, there were supposed to be all of these lighting changes that happened with each couch transition. And so my DP and I were like, well, if we're going from like a sunset to a night to a daylight look, we have to do green screen because the background needs to shift. And we didn't have money to do like a translator, an LED wall or anything like that. So we did green screen, but those transitions ended up going away, those lighting changes, like right before we shot. And so we were sort of like, well, now we're on the green screen. We don't really have time to change it. Let's keep it. So yeah, it's all VFX. And what was the key there was just having them like project the backgrounds onto actual geometry. That way, because you have these big camera moves, obviously, even if we did a still sort of matte painting or whatever, I'm always concerned that, the perspective is not going to change during these big moves, and it's not going to look right. And so that was sort of the key. And I think the other big thing was just like pushing the VFX and color hard to like let the windows blow out a little bit so they actually look real and make them look as glowy as we can, and they don't have to be like these perfectly exposed environments. So those were the two things that we were really focused on with the VFX there.
Yeah, the perspective is awesome in this. Like this shot for sure, right? Like
they killed it. It's the team who did it is the Refinery, and the post was a little bit crazy on this because some stuff happened that just kind of made it wild, but they did a really nice job in getting the perspectives to actually change with the camera moves, and it was a really tight timeline, and so I have to shout them out for that.
That's awesome. All right, cool. Let's talk about your set. So
let's do it.
Here is the hallway you talked about. Which is, it totally like adds a ton of depth. And then like, I love like this like detail, like the lighting slash. And then the palette too is like really, I think adds a lot as well. Versus just being like white walls. Right. And even like you have like this nice arch, just like, little enhancements versus just like you said, kind of a wooden box. You got like this little, where'd it go? Like little sconce kind of with this little cutout shelf.
Yeah.
So how much of the set design are you doing versus like leaving it up to your like art director, set designer?
I'm very hands-on with the set design, but I also do have a great production designer. Her name is Jessica Garrison, and I just sort of bugged the shit out of her in pre-pro. So like, obviously my whole goal is for it to look real. And I was in Chicago at the time, and anytime I was out, Chicago has like amazing architecture and really, people's apartments are really kind of old and interesting there. And so anytime I was somewhere that had something cool, she could attest to this, I would take a photo of it and send it to her and be like, oh, we should do this. We should do this. And I'm texting her like a million times a day. And so, my whole thing is trying to make it look real. And I just kept thinking like, what's the stuff that is in people's actual homes that doesn't make it onto the sets? And a lot of times it is those details, like built-in shelves are a hassle to do on a set build, but it's just like adds 10% realness. The sconces, I feel like people aren't always doing, but they add a lot of realness. The arched hallway is just sort of like a cool style thing I was into at the time. And all those details, I think, you keep plussing and plussing until things start to look real. And so we just I don't know, she and I go kind of hard in prep. And then the color thing too is, I think at the beginning of my career I was kind of scared of color, because once you make that decision you're locked in. But someone once said to me, you should be allergic to white walls. And I was like, that's so good, and you are so right, and I'm never doing a white wall again. We played with a lot of color palettes, which was really fun to do.
Yeah, and even like these details where you have like kind of these little, like layers, like where the walls stick out a little bit further.
Yeah. That's all stuff that's like, it's a hassle to do, but it just, again, it's that you're adding 1% more realness every time. And honestly, what was very helpful is Joybird owned a lot of these set pieces.
Oh, cool.
So a lot of them we would just sort of customize or add something. And like the arch they did not have, but they were very nice to let us use their stuff and actually cut the arch out on our own. And they've used it for like future things. And so, it's just trying to pick stuff that has style and is like, doesn't look like your standard box. Yeah.
Well, then your angles too, like how you, because there's a lot of wide lensing on this. So I am like, what was the dimensions of the set? Because like right here, like you're catching a little bit of the ceiling. Like, was that an actual ceiling or was that added later?
I think the ceiling, I want to say the ceiling was just a silk. It's just like a white silk, which is a little trick I learned. and yeah, it's just literally a silk on a frame that's just sort of stuck over and you cannot tell. But very wide lenses, which is another reason why we wanted to build everything in Blender and make sure we were not shooting off the set. But I like the look of wide lenses. I feel like every movement is just sort of exaggerated and dynamic.
Yeah, should
I
we
could look up, I could see if I have the actual dimensions. It's not actually the set is actually quite small, to be honest.
Okay.
And let me see if I can find, I have my initial sketch here. Let's see what it says.
Do you want to share your screen? We can open up Blender.
Yeah, let me just pull this sketch up, because in Blender it's going to take me 3 years to figure out how to pull up the dimensions.
Okay.
But if I just pull this up first. Okay, so the set, I believe, was 16 by 22, and then the hallway is like 4.5 feet wide. At least in the initial sketch that I sent to my production designer. It may have changed a little bit, but those were the sort of first measurements that we had.
Okay, sorry. How tall did you say the walls were? How tall were they?
I think the walls were only 8.5 or 9.
Okay.
They were not super tall.
Okay.
Maybe 9.5.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can pull up Blender and show you a little bit of how we started building this thing out, and
Yeah.
let's pull it up. Jon Joybird hallway. And again, this is like a collaboration between, and it's very messy, between my DP and I to do these sorts of things. So this is sort of what our build started as. And the biggest thing, honestly, was that the set was very small, and we included these like structural, you can see this, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It had these like structural poles that were like kind of a nuisance, honestly, obviously. And so the biggest thing was like figuring out the right way to orient the set so that those would be the least in our way as possible. And also to show the motion control tech and say, hey, what's going to be the best robot to fit in between here and the set, you know? And I feel like our robot was always like, it always felt like you were going to literally see it. Like it was basically hanging over the floors, you know? It was like halfway on and off the set. And we were definitely pushing on the wide lenses to not see it. But yeah, you know, this was just very helpful to be able to then go into the other, I can't even do it because I'm not good enough at Blender. I literally have to relearn it every time I do this. But it was helpful to be able to say like, okay, on the 20, you know, this is what our shot is going to look like. And, you know, sometimes it would be like, oh, we're seeing off the wall here. Maybe we have to either go to a longer lens, or maybe we have to make the set a little bit bigger. And yeah, that was just generally the jam for this thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. So when you're in Blender, did you kind of like plan every shot in here, or was it more just like you build the set and then you're kind of just like moving the camera around in Blender to kind of like look at things?
Yeah, I think we sort of queued up all the shots, but I don't know if this was more a tool for us to make sure that we weren't going to be seeing, you know, that a wall wasn't going to be too short or that something wasn't going to be too long. And obviously just for the motion control tech to see how much space he had. That was the main use of it. And so the iPhone Crapomatic Previs was more of our like, let's plan every shot in this.
Right, for sure. And then with this, can you dial in like your camera sensor and whatnot as well?
You can, and I don't remember how to do it. But you can choose your sensor, you can choose your lens, you can choose, you know, like if you're on a full frame camera versus like micro four thirds or whatever it may be, you can switch them. So it is a really useful tool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Just to give you the idea of what these rooms are going to look like on a lens, because it's one thing to like, you know, obviously you can go and measure your living room and just see how big it is. But, you know, a lot of times you don't have the luxury of that much space. And I don't like to be guessing, you know?
Yeah. No, this is brilliant. Like, I think that's always the most daunting thing with sets is everybody's like, you know, your set builder's like, well, how big do you want it? And I'm always like,
You're
let
like,
me get back to you on that.
Yeah. You're like, let me go home and measure my bedroom and hope that works.
Right.
Because oftentimes these things don't have to be as big as you think they do. Like I remember I said to my producer when we got on set, I was like, just like let the client and agency know this looks kind of small right now, but once we start shooting it and we're on wider lenses and everything is framed up, you're not going to be able to tell that it's a small room. And I feel like that's almost always the case, is that the rooms are just, they don't have to be as big as you're expecting. And obviously your line producer is then happy and your set builders are happy because they don't have to spend as much money.
Right. And like you said, the wider lenses definitely help make the room feel bigger.
Yeah.
Especially like that last shot you have where you kind of get that really high angle.
Yeah.
Like the space feels like, a really awesome, big space.
Yeah, I'm glad that was effective and that comes off, because I'm always nervous that someone's gonna call me on my bluff and be like, that room isn't actually very big.
Yeah, no, and then I also think it like, you're lensing, the furniture looks great. I think
thank you.
The product comes across really well.
Yeah, well, that's the great thing about honestly working with really good clients and agencies, is like they have such an intimate knowledge of their products because they've been with them for much longer than you have. And so like the Joybird CD was really great at being like, hey, this should maybe be a slightly longer lens so that the couch doesn't warp at the edges a little bit. And so they were all great to work with, and making sure that we were really dialed in on those little details. So I appreciate the compliments though. It's nice.
I think that's what's so fun about building sets, and like you did a great job of this, is like you said, like you were pulling stuff out of reality, but it's also like you can kind of build your dream home. Like these floors in here are really sweet. Like
I love them.
Yeah. Like I don't know if I'd ever have those in my house, but like they add so much like kind of richness and texture to the whole scene.
Yeah, every time I do a really cool set build, at the end of the day, I'm always like, I want to live in this thing. And I feel like that's how I design them too, is just like, what style am I into right now, and would I want to live here? And if the answer to the second question is yes, I feel like I've done a good job. And so yeah, that's always been fun. Yeah, you get to combine all these things as kind of a temporary thing that you don't have to live with forever, but it's really fun. It's funny, when I was a kid, when I would have babysitters come over, I would always ask if they wanted to like draw. I would draw hotels, and I would like design hotels, even if it was just the exterior. So now I'm like, well, no shit, I like doing production design. That's all I was doing as a little kid.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Was there any like problem solving that you had to do on set, or any kind of big pivots when you were on day of production?
Oh, I'm trying to think. I think the biggest stuff was I don't know, it's kind of obvious and simple, but anytime you're shooting a phone and you have a really precise shot, you've got to have like a C-stand that's holding the phone, and you have to have the talent just sort of work their hand in a weird way around it so that it's in the same spot every time. I don't know that there was any like huge problems. I feel like at least on set, outside of like, it was super hot and our AC was not working very well, and the motion control unit died several times just because it literally overheated. And so it was kind of just like we can't really do anything. But most of the problem solving was done in advance of like, where is the dog going to be in the shot, and like, how do we sell this part of the story a little bit better? And, I try to have as few, creative humps as possible on set, and I'm trying to solve as many of them in pre-pro as possible. And I think that's why there wasn't a ton of like big things to fix, No,
that's great. Well, and like you said with the phone, right? And yeah, like kind of like whether it's putting something up under the elbow or whatever to kind of get them in the same place. Because like, your robot's going to hit their mark every time, but then sometimes working with talent, it's like trying to get them into the right spot, or like the dog, right? Especially with the dog, and they're like, you can't get them to sit exactly where they need to sit.
The dog was great, and I think what we did is we had a bunch of the sounds that the motion control unit makes, and we sent them to the dog trainer so that they could like get him used to working while the thing is going, whatever, so that he was used to the noise. But he was great. I feel like he nailed it every time. But yeah, it's the biggest thing with Moko and performance is just getting the talent used to the timing, because like you said, the robot nails it every time, and then once you've got to tweak performance, that's where things get a little tricky, and it's kind of the whole game there, you know.
Yep, for sure. Well, sweet, Jon. Is there anything else you would want to talk about this before we kind of get to our lightning round here?
No, I mean, I feel like we really got in the weeds there, which is always fun to kind of nerd out over this stuff. So yeah, I think I'm all set. I'm ready for lightning.
All right, let's do it. All right, cool. Well, what directors inspire you right now? And this can be commercial or film.
Yeah. All right. So there's a couple. The first guy who really got me into filmmaking, I think most people know him, Hiro Murai. I was watching his music videos, you know, like at the lunch table in high school, and was just enthralled by him. And then commercially, the big ones, well, one of them is, I think it was maybe your first guest, Adam Patch. I think he's fantastic, like super technical filmmaker, but also a great storyteller, which is nice when people can combine those. This woman named Ali Roberto, she's crushing it. Her production design is amazing, storytelling, camera movement, incredible. And then there are this duo, I think they call themselves the Queen. I don't remember their names, but they do a similar thing. Have you seen their stuff?
I think I know exactly. They're UK, right?
Yeah.
And they do a lot of motion control stuff.
Yeah, a lot of movement, a lot of kinetic feeling stuff, but they also shoot everything on their iPhones, and they post a lot of their sort of previs in advance, which I think is an amazing insight to their process. And yeah, their work is really kinetic and just like super fun to watch. So those are the kind of the main people I'm watching who are inspiring my work.
So what inspires you outside of directing? So kind of what do you do when you're not directing?
Yeah, I've gotten really into coffee, and now I'm kind of a snob, and like when people ask me to meet for coffee, I'm always like, yeah, but can I pick the place? Because I want to like pick something that's really good. So coffee has been a big thing for me. And then the nerdy one is I honestly have really gotten back into fingerboarding.
Oh yeah.
I'm like a big ADHD guy, and it's a really great little like stimulus. The noise bugs the shit out of anyone who's nearby. But it's very fun. So those are kind of my only hobbies. I shoot a little Super 8 too, which is it's connected to film obviously, but it's like a kind of fun home video type thing.
What's your best trick on the fingerboard?
I'm trying to think. You know, I sort of have like nollie tray flips on lock, which is that and like varial heel flips are super. Those are my two sort of go-to bag of tricks when I want to impress someone. Yeah, there's a store that recently opened up in Chicago that has all these parks. They're kind of this like legendary company, and this is their first store in the US. And so anytime I'm there like 4 days a week, just being a child at 29 years old.
That's awesome, dude. Yeah. Look, keep that. Okay, so what tools can you not live without? And this can be like in pre-production, production, and post.
Yeah, I think my lame answer is my iPhone, because I shoot everything on the phone first. And then maybe I when I'm doing image pulls, I do a lot of, do you know Flim? It's flim.ai. I find that they have really good pulls that are not like stock feeling, and they have some pretty solid GIFs as well. So that's a go-to. And then honestly, I just like the people I work with are so fucking good at their jobs, and they are so instrumental to me making something good, from the client to the agency to like DPs and G&E on set. I'm just like, I'm always amazed at what they're able to pull off, and which of my asks they're not going to be annoyed by, and that they're going to do a great job of. So yeah, those are my big ones. I'll also say from your Adam Patch episode, the patch tagger extension is honestly killer. So those are my, that's multiple tools. It's not a great answer, but
no,
yeah.
it's really good. It's a great answer. Okay.
Yes.
So next one is our question from our previous guest, which this one was from Syra McCarthy.
Okay.
And they want to know what's the one thing on shoot day that will create the best you? Like, is there something you kind of do before you're on set or a shoot day that kind of will create the best Jon?
I think, well, the obvious answer is prep, because if I'm not going out to set nervous, then I'm in a good mood. The other thing is, like, it's not really acting, but I feel like as directors, we are kind of always putting on a little bit of a show. And so I always make a point to, like, get on set and just say hi to everyone, shake everyone's hand, because then it's not awkward when you're asking someone to do something that you think is hard, and you don't have to come across as like the aloof, too cool director. So I feel like if you show up and right away you're in a good mood, you're saying hi to everyone, you're prepped, you're not nervous, and you've shooken everyone's hand, it just puts you in a really good spot to have a good shoot day. So that's a good question. That's my answer.
Nice. That's great. Yeah, I love that about kind of shaking everybody's hand and meeting everybody, because I do think that is super important.
Yeah, I remember when I was office PAing, anytime directors did that, I was just always in a little bit of a better mood, and it just felt like, okay, we're just all people working on a thing together.
Yeah.
And they're cool and we're all cool and everyone's in a good mood now. And so, yeah, that's been a thing for me for sure.
Well, especially too when it's like all these people are basically here for you in a way.
Yeah.
They're all there to bring your vision to life. So I think like just like treating them with respect, like they're they're not getting as much out of it as you are, but like they're here to like try to help you succeed. So I think you just always got to kind of remember that and treat everybody with respect,
100%. Yeah, that's been a huge thing for me that I learned really quickly, is that if I don't do my job, then someone else can't do their job as well. And like, then, their ass is kind of on the chopping block. If I am like turning stuff in late to the storyboard artist, then they potentially have to stay up late and bored, which is like sucks for them. And I don't want to do that. So yeah, again, it just comes back to prep and like, yeah, respecting everyone's time and being decisive is huge. So yeah.
All right, cool. Next is your turn to leave a question for the next guest.
Okay, my question is maybe it sounds intense. I don't know. I was going to do something lighthearted, like, where's your favorite sandwich in LA? But I have something I think is maybe better. So my question is, if there's something you could change or tell yourself from earlier on in your career, knowing what you know now, what would that be?
Great. Awesome. Sweet. Well, Jon, where can people find you? What's your hashtags, website, all that good stuff?
Yeah, my website is itsjonschwartz.com, no H, but it's SCHWARTZ. My Instagram is the same, it's Jon Schwartz. Yeah, feel free to send me an email. I try to be like as transparent about directing and the process as possible. So if you want to send me an email, shoot me a DM, whatever it may be, those are the spots you can find me.
Perfect. Well, I really appreciate your insight, man. This was great, and thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, dude. Thank you for having me. It was great chatting.
All right, that does it for another show. Thanks for watching the Commercial Directors Podcast, and please subscribe to the show on any of the platforms where you listen to your podcast and on YouTube. YouTube's a great place where you can actually watch the breakdown, so make sure you subscribe. Also, give us a follow on the gram at the Commercial Directors Pod. And please DM us there. We would love to hear from you on potential guests you'd like on the show and what topics you want to learn more about. Or you can email me at evan@swinehartco.com, and that's SWINEHARTCO.com.